Shadow Shoot Shot. Once again, another episode of Shadow Shoot Shot. We're talking about the world of professional wrestling, and this time in this episode, we are talking about legacies. Legacies in the world of professional wrestling. So, fans, get ready. Click like, click subscribe. Do it now because we are on. This week, Mr. Storm, the Shadow, we're doing
Hey.
it. And we're doing it live. Yeah, we're doing it live. We're doing it really cool, guys, and stuff. It's like we're not gonna beat around the bush, not gonna jump in and do a whole monologue on like whatever I did this week in my barbecues or whatever. Let's just jump right into it. The world of professional wrestling and the legacies that are left behind, second and third generations in this world of professional wrestling, this here and now in this age of 2024. We're seeing the past. And we'll start with the past, with the past that I'm connected to or that I have history with. It's the Guerrero family. The Guerrero family, as I've said, from honoration and admiration and respect to the family, because Mondo Guerrero is the one that trained me as a professional wrestler. That was way back in the 80s and stuff. But you look at the legacy of their family and stuff, and you have to say, like, wow, what a legacy. You're talking about Gory Guerrero, the father. You talk about Hector, Mondo, Chavo Sr., and then Eddie. You know, everybody knows the story of Eddie. Eddie was the most famous and successful out of the Guerrero family, being WWE champion, Hall of Famer and everything. And then there's this. There's that next generation, third generation actually, Chavo Jr., Chavo Guerrero, who man, it's the question of, it's like, in his career, he had his own moments. He created his own moments in WCW. He created his own moments in WWE. But then he won tag team championships with Eddie. So Chavo had a great career. He done some amazing things, and you got to give props to Chavo. He was like only like a couple of years younger than Eddie. So he had an amazing career, and I think that now, like him working in Hollywood, he was part of, I think, the choreography of the movie The Claw, the movie about the Von Erich. So you talk about a generation and a legacy that's been left behind, and it's there. And I think that there's still room for Chavo to really have an impact in wrestling, behind the scenes at least. As I mentioned before, I think that Chavo should be, AEW should bring him on and let him be one of the bookers. We talked about Lucha Underground and how Chavo played a big part in Lucha Underground. WWE should like give him a spot somewhere, man. Let him work backstage as a manager or whatever and stuff. But honestly, I think that where he could put his imprint on is in AEW, and that's if they were smart enough to hire him, let him book some matches, help build up some of the young talents and stuff. And I brought up the Guerreros just because it's like there's one more Guerrero. There was Eddie Guerrero's daughter, and she had like she was supposed to be. There was rumors that she was coming to AEW, but she hasn't. And it's interesting to see how those second and third generation talents and kids would have the decision to jump into the world of professional wrestling and then just never make a mark. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. That's just the thing. And I think that the key word is the it factor. Either you have it or you don't, and it just comes to, like, you can have the it factor on the mic, but not have the it factor in the ring. And we'll talk about a couple of people that just really just didn't have both. You know what I mean? So if you think about legacies and you think about generations of wrestlers, and you look at, let's go with the Hart family, the Hart family, Stampede Wrestling. Everybody had to go. A lot of guys came out of Stampede Wrestling and they were great. They become WWE Hall of Famers. I'll just name one: Chris Jericho. He came out of Stampede. He became a Hall of Famer, or he should be, or will be a Hall of Famer. And, he's one of the greatest wrestlers that ever lived. Now, you speak of Chris Jericho, you have to also say, it's like, this guy is kind of ruining his legacy right now because of the things that he's doing currently in AEW. And I'm not a fan of it. There's a time and a moment when you got the fans chanting, please retire, then that should be a cue to say, maybe I'm not making the most of my days left. And if you still have one more match in you, You should time it. You should build it. It should be special. It shouldn't just be I'm in the ring every week wrestling all these random people for no reason. So I would have to say that Chris Jericho, yeah, you're not doing yourself any justice. He's
Well,
definitely not doing himself any
well,
justice.
here's the thing, Shadow. Do you really kind of ruin it? Because like every wrestler that we've seen towards the end, it's never really been that good. It's rarely that they end out on the top. They usually are at one point at the end jobbing, or they're just oversaturated because of the fact is that wrestling is sometimes not the most lucrative business. So if you look at that kind of thing, we got to point out to the Jake the Snake Roberts and everything. Sometimes it just does not end well for these wrestlers, unfortunately.
Well, when you talk about guys that are Hall of Famers, like a Jake
Hmm.
Roberts, it's just a matter of like how you live your life, how you
Hmm.
manage your money, what you did in actuality when you was at the top, when you was making big bucks and stuff. Did you manage your money properly? So that you're not working at the bingo halls and stuff,
Hmm.
um, not working at birthday parties. So therein lies the point of like how you manage it when you are on top, when you are a Hall of Famer. And then of course, yes, there's a story which we can do a whole episode or a whole series on like wrestlers that like bust their asses, work hard,
Hmm.
became superstars, and are broke working at Walmart. There's plenty of stories like that, man. There's guys
Hmm.
that you would not believe are like working regular 9 to 5s or working at like freaking cars as car salesmen and things of that nature and stuff. And then there's wrestlers that are working like just random shows, the bootleg shows. And I won't say
Hmm.
bootleg shows, but the independent shows that only
Yeah.
draws like 200 people and you're getting paid $50. So there's always that, but there's also the international circuit and stuff. So there's
Hmm.
guys that can still continue their careers and stuff at the tail end of their careers and make some decent money and stuff. And when you talk about like the Hart family,
Yeah.
Stampede Wrestling and the legacies and stuff like that. I didn't really want to go into the legacies of Stampede Wrestling, but just Bret the Hitman Hart, Jim the Anvil Neidhart. Bret Hart is a legend. This guy went on from tag team to one of the greatest tag teams to
Yep.
becoming a solo wrestler and the best there is, best there was, best there ever will be. And even when he went to WCW and he had a stint there and stuff. So Bret Hart is one. Then you talk about his brother Owen Hart, and Owen Hart, who
Mm.
he had a bright career ahead of him. It was really sad about the accident and what
Yeah.
happened and how he passed, But Owen Hart, he's a Hall of Famer. You know what I mean? And the
Yeah.
time that he had, he became a Hall of Famer. Then you go to the British Bulldog,
Yeah.
Davy Boy Smith. The British Bulldogs was a great tag team champion. Too bad the Dynamite Kid, had the accident and ended up in a wheelchair. But then you talk about the legacy. Now, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, daughter of Natalia in the WWE, she's great. And honestly, she wasn't one of the best wrestlers, but she had enough of the it factor to be able to create her path and have a long career. And now she's working with a lot of the young talents and building the young talents up, jobbing when they need her to job, working with a girl to help put her over, working with a girl to take them to that next level. And that's just how good she is. So as I stated, she didn't have the it factor to where it's like she had iconic, legendary matches, but she had good, decent matches. She built good, decent feuds, and she has been a stable part of the WWE for a long time. Now we get
Well,
into one.
well,
Yeah,
let me ask you something. How come it is when you do have like the second and third generations, and they don't have all the intangibles, and one either they're not good on the mic or they're just not very good technical wrestlers. When you have that kind of legacy and the knowledge tree that you have, why do you think they don't excel? Because there's certain people I've seen that just didn't have any of that legacy and they just busted their behinds, got in, trained, and did it. Do you think it's a factor is because they have the legacy that they don't really feel like they need to work for it? Or like what's your thoughts on why second and third generation talents don't make it all the way up to the next level?
I best way I can describe it is that is this the same word, the two words, it factor. Either you have the it factor or you don't. And God's honest truth, you can be the son and daughter or granddaughter or grandson or niece and nephew, uncle, whatever, of one of the greatest legends of all time. And that does not automatically give you that talent and ability or the willpower to become that next thing. And I love using, we love basketball. I love using the analogy. You got LeBron James and you got LeBron James' son, now a Laker. And this was handed to him, silver platter. But
Mhm.
that does not make this kid to be the next LeBron. Now, and honestly, it doesn't even make him like, if you talk about the levels of wrestling, you
Mhm.
know, he's a jobber right now. As far as I see him,
Yeah.
the talent he has, he's a jobber. He's the guy that will come on and do jobs every week and stuff, and then maybe become popular because everybody loves that he's consistently there to entertain us and do the job. And there's been plenty of guys that have had Brooklyn Brawler, for instance. He had a career of being one of the
Right.
best
Mhm.
jobbers in the WWE history. Now, when you say legacy and you talk about the talent history, like Natalia, she's patterned herself into a great career. She hasn't had like the greatest moments or whatever when you compare her to say like Charlotte Flair,
Yeah.
but she still will be a Hall of Famer. But now we'll go into her cousin, David Hart Smith, Davy Boy Smith Jr., if you want to call him. This is the British Bulldog's son. When he came in with Ted DiBiase Jr. and what's his name, Curtis Axel. That's Kurt Hennig's son. You're talking
Mhm.
about these are three guys that like should have created a stable, should have become the biggest and best. And these guys came up the same time as Cody Rhodes. You're
Yeah.
talking about Ted DiBiase Jr., Curtis Axel, who was Kurt Hennig's son. This is a third generation wrestler, and Cody Rhodes, and they all came along with Randy Orton as well. Now, out of all those guys, Davy Boy Smith Jr. or David Hart Smith, this guy came and he went and he faded. And then he's wrestled in the independent circuit the rest of his career. I think he did a stint in New Japan. But like literally, you looked at this guy, the size and everything, the look, it was like, wow, he's the next version of his dad. He didn't make it. He's not in the AEW right now. He's not like shining and blowing up or anything. He just like faded away and disappeared. That's the same for Ted DiBiase Jr.
Mhm.
This guy just got out of wrestling. I think it was just like he didn't want it. He didn't want a part of it. It was just if you come to the decision that you don't want to do this or you don't have the passion for it, get out, leave. Don't just like keep doing it just cause my dad or my mom was it. Move on. Leave space for other people to do. Curtis Axel, same thing. It's like he's gone. He's MIA.
But
So
see,
these guys don't make it.
that's where I kind of think that it's not so much the it factor. I just think it was an easier path for them to get into wrestling, and I don't
Yeah,
think they ever had the passion for it.
yeah,
Because when you're looking at like you can take Rey Mysterio's son Dominic.
yeah,
Dominic's really not that good. They've been kind of like, protecting him because he has good storylines, but when he's in the ring, there's nothing about him that shoots out to me like this guy is going to be phenomenal. So maybe it's a little bit more. We've even talked about Taz's son. There's some streaks and some points where like maybe it's just because it's an easier path for them to get into wrestling, but they just don't have it. They think they have it. It's kind of like Michael Jordan's son. We're going to use the basketball analogy.
mhm,
It's very rare in the NBA for a son to be great. Normally, the father's kind of good, or if the father is just an average player, then the son's great. Well, I think
yeah,
in wrestling, it's a little bit different. In wrestling, there could be like multiple great generations of people, and we've seen it down the line. There are some people like if you look at the whole bloodline and you look at Rocky Johnson and then you look at Dwayne Johnson, these are ones of pinnacle superstar streaks, and yet also no one says that the Rock's not a good wrestler. He's got it all there, but I think that he, even though he fell into it and just said, well, look, I guess I'm gonna go into wrestling, I think he put his whole desire and passion into something. While I think that these other generational kids that come in are just like, hey, it's just like the Bronny James thing. This is
yeah.
the easiest path for me to get in, but they don't have the total passion for it. They think they want it, but it comes out that they don't have it, you know?
Well, it's a lot of that. It's a lot of that, but it is also and I'll use as you mentioned the two, Dominic Mysterio and
Mm.
Taz's son Hook. There's a difference because of their I think they're around the same age, the
It looks like
23,
it, yeah.
24, or
Mhm.
something like that. And you look at like where they're both at. Dominic Mysterio reminds me on the same, like he's in the same path as The Rock was. You
Mhm.
know, everybody forgets, or some people sometimes we forget who The Rock was when he started. He
Yeah.
was Rocky Maivia wearing all of the weird color stuff and all this other kind of stuff, and everybody hated that dude. And he wasn't that great in the ring, but it was like that breakout moment to where he became. And I really feel like at a really early age now that Dominic is so young, he's already taking that next. It'd be different if it was like he was still there when he was still tagging with his dad and he was like very green and looked terrible. But like Dominic's taking that next step. Now he's got more heat than anybody has ever had. I think Dominic has more heat than The Rock did when people were booing him and hated him. I think that he has a solid in-ring presence, and I think it's just now a matter of him creating and developing his own repertoire because right now currently he's doing a lot of the stuff that his dad did, which is good.
Mhm.
It's legacy moves, and that's where you get it. You get legacy moves from your parents or your other people, but then you create your own elements of it. Whereas you look at Hook and you have to say it's like, all right, bro, you've been here over a year and you have not improved. You've been here a couple of years and you have not gotten better. In actuality, you've gotten worse. Now they put him with Samoa Joe to help try to teach him and move him along and move him forward. And I think that this is one of the detriments to AEW structure. You bought Ring of Honors. You didn't structure Ring of Honors to be like your NXT.
Mhm.
If you structure Ring of Honors like your NXT, turn Collision into Ring of Honor's show, and then highlight and focus those other younger talents into building them into something, you develop something that probably be a lot greater and better. You take like I mentioned, Chavo Guerrero
Mhm.
and say, Chavo, um, the Collision show, Ring of Honors is yours. You train and develop these young talents, and that's where you build. And then they can graduate to the AEW Rampage or whatever show. But when I look at the two, between the two, if I compare generational wrestlers,
Mhm.
Dominic Mysterio to me has the potential to be one of the biggest superstars in WWE. And I really feel like just with the heat that he has there, and there's still learning curves because, like, I don't think he's playing to the crowd like he should. He
Yeah.
plays to it once and then he lets them oversaturate him with the booze. But like if it was Eddie, or if it was Eddie Guerrero, cállate, cabrón, cállate. I just start speaking Spanish, man, and I go crazy. I get out the ring, I walk around the entire thing and be telling everybody to shut the hell up. I'm talking. And there's a lot that he could do with what he has right now to really elevate himself to the next level. But he's kind of slow with doing it. And I think that at some point now, in which he has yet to have one identified feud beyond his father. So they
Yeah.
need to move him on, move his storyline along, which they're doing actually, because it's like uh Liv, she's fantastic. That's grade A WWE television with Liv Morgan and Dominic Mysterio, the whole love triangle now that they're building to when Rhea Ripley does return. So they're building something great now. And then I also see that Finn Balor is in the mix of that. So if it was me, I would be building towards the moment where the blood, whether they group call, where they break up, and then you maybe build towards Finn Balor or the other guy feuding with Dominic Mysterio, or Damian Priest and Dominic Mysterio feuding with them. But Dominic needs his own identifiable feud that you can last for a month so he can grow and develop. And it should be with a seasoned wrestler so that he can grow into something. That's when he's going to go to the next level. With Hook, they've
Mhm.
tried him with a couple of guys, man, and none of it's worked. Nothing. There is not. And now the thing with Samoa Joe, I just don't. I love Joe. I think he's fantastic and great, but Joe should actually be like Hook off TV, Joe and Hook in a training room and training in the ring, training, and then take one other guy and then boom, You put them together and you just start building for like a couple of months and see if he evolves. Now, in AEW and generational wrestlers, there's a pair of wrestlers that to me right now I say could be some of the biggest stars in wrestling history, and that's Billy Gunn's kids. The
Mm.
Guns. Those kids, they when you say it factor, they have it factor. Those kids in ring, fantastic. Remind me of their dad, but it's like his dad took himself and split him in two. One looks like him, one acts like him, and they both act like him, and their moves are like him. It's like the best of Billy Gunn is in both of his sons. So it, they should be the AEW Tag Team Champions. They should be like the longest reigning champions. They should be lining tag teams up against these guys and having great, tremendous feuds. Right now, they're doing that 3-man tag thing or whatever. That's cool, whatever and stuff. Jay White, actually, I wasn't a big fan of him, but I'm starting to kind of dig him. But if he can get that phlegm stuff taken care of, dude fluffing at the mouth like he's got rabies or something, man. And it's not appealing for television at all and stuff. And that's just the kind of element of like bootleg when you look at AEW. There's so many elements of like bootleg wrestlers in AEW that you can't take it serious. If I was Billy Gunn, I would take my kids. I would say WWE, NXT. These guys would be tag team champions in less than a year, or should I say in a year, if they went to WWE, NXT, and then jumped to the main roster, and they would be competing for the greatest or longest reigning tag team champions in WWE history. And that's just my thoughts on like who I think has the most tremendous talent as a generational wrestlers. And let's name them. Dominic Mysterio, I think he had to become a huge star. The Guns brothers, they had the potential to become huge stars. Braun Breaker, automatically, Braun Breaker is going to be one of the biggest stars in WWE. If he stays healthy and he keeps on the path he's going, and yeah, he just lost that Money in the Bank, the IC title, but it's like his career is young, it's new. He had to take an L, and they helped make Sami Zayn look good as a solid champion. I think that they're saving Sami Zayn for Jey Uso for SummerSlam. Those are my thoughts and opinions, because it's like these guys are homies, they're boys. It's a great storyline to where it's like they were both bloodlines, and now main event Jey Uso has to prove that he is main event Jey Uso. He needs a title. You can't keep calling him main event Jey Uso and he don't have a title. So, as a generational wrestler, going from one of the greatest tag teams ever, and then now a solo wrestler, there has to be that big moment for Jey Uso to where he proves that he is a solo wrestler. So, and that means to me that he beat Sami Zayn at SummerSlam. Those are my thoughts on him. But Braun Breaker, he'll have his chance, man. Like, look, which there's been rumors and there's been talk. Braun Breaker, of course, he's a Steiner. He's a second generational wrestler. There's been talk that they're trying to bring in, and they're waiting for the right time to bring in Brock Lesnar. And oh my God, Braun Breaker and Brock Lesnar, everybody wanted that at WrestleMania. But if you start that path and it's Braun Breaker and Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, holy mackerel, that's going to be, oh my goodness.
So now, who do you feel is out of the, let's say, the legacies? Do you think like if you look at the Bloodline's legacy, or the Von Erichs, or the Harts, or the Guerreros, who do you think is the greatest legacy family, in your opinion?
Oh, come on, man. That's automatic. That's the Bloodline. We say the Bloodline because when you say Bloodline, that includes all of them. Because
when you see that family tree,
that tree is fantastically amazing. And you're talking about, all the way back to like, I believe the early 70s. To now current, and I think I don't want to say the 60s, but I know for sure
I think it goes into the 60s. Yeah,
Peter Maivia, he's just like the first. Peter Maivia, I worked with and I wrestled with Peter Maivia Jr. He was based out of California and worked a lot of shows and stuff. He never became a big star because he was on the shorter side, but the legacy of their family, man, it's like the Maivias, the Fatus, You can name, just say the bloodline. The
Yeah,
bloodline
the
will.
bloodline.
There's no family
Mhm.
that will ever be greater than the bloodline. Family legacy. The Hearts are fantastic. The Heart has the legacies. The Von Erichs, they have their legacy. You know, the Guerreros, they have their legacy. But you know, you can name them off in one hand as far as like big,
Mhm.
real major family legacies. But yeah, the Bloodline's legacy is the greatest of all time. But and speaking of legacies and speaking of the Bloodline, there
Mhm.
is one member of the Bloodline family that I'll be honest, does not have the it, and
Mhm.
that's she goes by Ava Rain, who is The Rock's daughter, who
Mhm.
is the GM on NXT. And I'm
Mhm.
not one that just goes around and is like, oh, it's The Rock's daughter, so let me speak nice things about him and stuff. Shadow never does that. Shadow will never do that. And I'll
Mhm.
just be perfectly honest. She can barely talk. She
Yeah.
can't wrestle, otherwise she would have been wrestling already. They tried her in the training thing center, and so far she has not developed into whatever. I think that even, and this is the truth. Jade Cargill is
Mhm. Mhm.
better than Ava Rain, and Jade Cargill is still a very very green wrestler.
Yeah.
She has the muscles and she has the blonde hair and everything and the body and physique. Jay Cargill is fantastic, but like in the ring, she's freaking terrible. You
Yeah.
know, and WWE is trying to protect her as much as they possibly can, but either you get better or you don't. And you could possibly become just like Ronda Rousey. You know, Ronda
Yeah.
Rousey, all the hype and hoopla, they even gave her the belt and everything. And it was like she did not live up to expectations. And Jay Cargill is in jeopardy of that because she will become a jobber just as fast as she's become a superstar. And Ava Rain, at least, you know, because it's The Rock's daughter, they're
Yeah.
protecting her. They said, look,
Mhm.
this is not going to work out for you in the ring right now. So, you know, we'll make you GM for now. So you'll have a role on television and stuff.
Mhm.
She's okay. She's okay. But I think maybe there is that thing of where it's like, once she doesn't have the it factor, she will need a breakout moment at some point. Either this character she's playing is just not suitable for her, or
Mhm.
she just has not dug into it, but she needs a breakout, something that happens that really breaks out. And maybe someone attacks her. If she's okay and ready for the ring, that would help elevate her to really dig into the character. But you're talking about your dad. He's one of the greatest actors in Hollywood. He was great in the ring. He had the charisma, and that's what it is. I don't see charisma in
Yeah.
her at
Mhm.
all, none at all. So, yeah, when you talk about legacies, you know, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But her story is not over. There's
Yeah.
time for
True.
her to
True.
grow and develop into
Mhm.
something. We never know. She may turn into something, but like for the right nows, Dominic Mysterio, he's on track to becoming one of the greatest. The Guns, they're on track to becoming some of the greatest. Braun Breaker is on track to becoming one of the greatest. So you got three choices right now that you can look at and you can say, fantastic, man, wow. I can't wait to see what happens next. But then there are the others that will maybe fade out until you say, oh yeah, what happened to this guy? Or what happened to this kid? It, we got a couple of those. Like
Mhm.
Hook,
Yeah.
he will go down as a whatever happened to Taz's kid. One, dude
Mhm.
is like 5'7", maybe like
Yeah.
5'7". I'm giving him like I think maybe 5'6", 5'5", but um, I don't see it.
Yeah.
Prove me wrong. That's all I can say is, Hook, please prove me wrong. You know, but it is
Well,
what it is.
since we're talking about legacies, it be bestowed upon us not to mention probably one of the most tragic legacies in the Von Erichs that was actually turned to the film The Claw or the Iron Claw.
Mhm.
Watching that movie gives you a sense about the business. And I don't know if it painted a very positive light on it, but it did kind of like, it's one of those things where I think that there are moments and times when they do when they have something like a documentation or something like this that hits the screen, that I
Mhm.
think it doesn't give the greatest light to wrestling, and in fact it shows like a side of wrestling that sometimes is mentioned far too often. uh you've seen the film. What were your thoughts? Did you think that film, one, helped legacy? to help wrestling?
Yeah, I did see the film, and all I can say is like the depiction and the descriptive that they gave for this for their story, the Von Erich's legacy. It was probably done the nicest way possible because there were
Hmm.
more tragedy than it was
Yeah.
displayed on that film. Um, being a part of wrestling in the 80s and everything, and growing up in Texas and spending my years, my
Hmm.
teenage years in Texas, the Von Erichs was right here. Ric Flair and Kerry Von Erich at the he's the Silver Dome.
Hmm.
Man, 80,000. It was like 60,000 people back in the 80s, sold
Yeah.
out. That's how big the Von Erichs were. That's how big Ric Flair was. And to see that, like Kerry Von Erich wrestled with like a amputated foot, a fake
Yeah.
foot, towards the end of his lifespan. There's a lot of elements that just says it's like they were a tough family. But again, it comes down to it's like there's so much pressure that's put on you when you
Hmm.
get, especially when you're a legacy wrestler, when you get into this business and it's like your father or your grandfather or whatever and stuff, and we could go into the point of like the Bray Wyatt and his
Hmm.
brother, but just looking at the Von Erichsen himself, it's like, man, and Kevin Von Erich, the only surviving brother of he has two sons, and they're in their like late 30s, so they're wrestling. No, they didn't get into this business and jump into
Hmm.
this business and go. And I think that Kevin probably more than likely just said is like, do what you want. You want to be an IT specialist, be an IT specialist. You don't have to wrestle. I think he gave his kids an option, and
Hmm.
they just walked out of it. So it's sad, and I think that as far as like what kind of imprint it leaves on wrestling, um, it is just a statement of it's like this business is hard. It's not as easy
Hmm.
as you think, and it's not this whole wrestling's fake, blah blah blah, because it's predetermined. Now, wrestling is one of the hardest business and industries and careers you can possibly have, and just like an NBA or a football player or anything, there is no guarantees that you're going to become a superstar. There's no guarantees you're going to go into WWE or AEW. Out of all the Von Erichs, there was only one that made it to WWE, and that's Kerry, the most talented out of all the brothers. And Kerry became world champion and IC champion. Biggest match, as I stated, with Ric Flair. What is not the Pontiac Silverdome, but the whatever the arena. But just point being is like, man, out of all those brothers, there was only one that really made it.
Yeah.
If you look at the Guerrero family and himself and stuff, Mondo, Chavo, Eddie, Hector, and Chavo were tag team champions, tag teams all over Texas and everything else like that and stuff. But like out of that entire family, Eddie was the only one that made it to become world
Hmm.
champion. So there's, Mondo. He even on the show, the Squared Circle Top Wrestling Show, Mondo came on and he told his story how he had the opportunity to have one of his greatest matches was against who? Harley Race for the world championship. So they've had their great moments
Hmm.
and made their imprint in the world of professional wrestling, but that doesn't, there's no guarantee that like everyone will become world champion or everyone will make it to the big stage. And the big stage, of course, is WWE. But out of all of those guys, it's like Kevin Von Erich's kids never became famous wrestlers. Sting, who we saw for the very first time, his two sons, who in his retirement match at AEW, we
Hmm.
saw his two kids. It's like, oh wow, look at these guys. And one's a gamer. I don't know what the other one is, but one's a gamer. They're not wrestlers, So you just think about that, and they're in like their late 30s or early 40s now. So that's a definite like they're not going to start their career to try to make it at WWE in the age of like 38 and 40. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
No. No.
they
No.
would have already
Very
made
rare.
their name.
Hmm.
And but you look at now the bloodline, and you look at Tamatonga and those
Hmm.
guys that are now coming in. They're in there. Some of them are in the mid 30s or late 30s. But there's one whose name has just popped up. Uh, Hiko Leo, who's wrestling right now in New Japan. I guess it's done
Hmm.
from what I understand, he is now on the WWE roster. Hikulia is 6'8",
Yeah.
has potentially, I don't want to say has it, but potential it factor. This guy is, and that is Haku's son.
Mhm.
So and he's 33 right now. So he's at his prime coming into WWE roster, 6'8". He could probably be one of the most impressive out of all of the bloodline so far that's come in. So it'll be interesting to see if he does come in and what they do with him and stuff. And as a legacy, and the guy that's one of the youngest is Solo. Solo, he's like right here, and it's either he's going to elevate or
Yeah.
he's going to drop right back down. I mean, because in ring he's okay. Um, he doesn't have that, like what's the name, the Fatu, the newest one. He has it. He's that
Mhm.
big wow, he's that wow every time you see him because you're wondering what he's going to do. But at the same time, they had to get permission from Canada to get this guy across the border. So like, what kind of record does he have?
Yeah, he must got one heck of one.
So it's really interesting and scary because it's like this dude is actually like a little scary, dangerous,
Yeah.
scary. It's like he can hurt anybody in that ring. There's a reason why, and this is the God's truth when Paul Heyman said it. There's a reason why these guys never made it to WWE, but
Mhm.
things are so big right now. They said, okay, cool, we're gonna bring them in. And at any point and any time, I think that they're going to apply that to the storyline. And as everybody's like, oh, Roman's going to come, he's going to form his own. Honestly, I think Tangaloa, Haku's kids, I think that when they bring in that third one, that'll be three Haku kids. I think they're gonna fucking kick out Solo, beat his ass, give him a beat down, kick him out the gang, and they're
Mhm.
gonna take over the gang. And they're just building their own thing right now. Honestly, I think that at this point right now, I really do believe that this is the direction that they may go in. And then Solo's gonna have to come with his tail between his legs, get his brothers to come help him, and then the Usos and get Roman Reigns to help him take down the new bloodline that he created and he started. Because you're talking about actual felons that's in the WWE. That's three felons,
Yeah.
three felons that are in the WWE in the bloodline right now. So if they apply that in real life stuff into the storyline, we
Mhm.
could see the young, ambitious Solo Sokoa get beat out just like gang. He get beat out the club, out the gang and stuff, and
Mhm.
then what's next. So we'll
Well, you
see.
think that Rock had a lot to do with that now with some of his obscure family members, getting that kind of kick in because, The Rock has the ear of the top of the people. And if they weren't let in at one point, because it does seem like there is a major push for a lot of the bloodline that maybe they never got that opportunity before. And
Yeah,
seeing some of these
yeah.
obscure members pop in, I can only think that Dwayne Johnson had a little bit of push for that too.
Absolutely. I definitely think he had a lot of input to make that happen. And the focal point is like when Roman Reigns now has the power and the juice that he has, and then The Rock is there to co-sign on what Roman's like, yo, bring in my cousin. Yeah, that's right, bring in my cousin, bring in our cousins. And that is definitely a factor or decision to help build and bring in the guys that, hey, this is your chance to make it to the big stage. This is your chance to get a big payday, make more money than you're currently making, and a chance to be immortalized in action
Mhm.
figures and stuff like that. Now, what I'm really excited about, and we can jump into the our theme of collectibles is
Mhm.
a bloodline series of action figures, man.
Mhm.
Like, I want to see like they could like at some point make like a 10 pack. And how would you like box that up? How would you create that to where there's like the rock, like a tree? Oh my God. Just imagine a family tree and it's like this huge thing of like all of the bloodline all like stacked up into the spot. I don't even know if I can say this, but it's like I don't care. I don't give a fuck how much that costs. That would
Yeah.
probably be something that I would have to have.
Yeah,
You
that
know,
would be interesting to
imagine
have
that.
to see that bloodline and do it from the top of the tree all the way down and having like some of the older wrestlers that probably never really got like, figures in those days and everything. I think that would be a smart move, and I think that would be something extremely. And think about it, as just the
Bro.
bloodline to see that family tree, that many, that would probably be like one of probably the greatest collectibles that they could do in the
Greatest
WWE.
action figure collection ever, bro.
Mhm.
I man, look, you know me, and
Oh
I
yeah,
say like if you told me this gonna cost you $200, but it's gonna
yeah,
have like about 15 action figures in clear cases and everything specially packaged, everything of the bloodline in itself, family tree, whatever you want to call it. Oh, and with like just like the thing that they showed with the
yeah,
names, connections and stuff. All that is the background, the
yeah.
backdrop of this
Mhm.
collection, and then each action figure just like lined up. Man, oh man, I would. Now you just think about it. You could do that with the Guerreros. You
You
could
could
do
do
that with
that
the
with so many.
Hearts.
Mhm.
Man, that would be awesome, man. That's the
Well,
collection of action figures
we
that
should
I
probably have Mattel give you a call or something to get some
think.
ideas.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. Absolutely, man. But hey, we'll wait and see. But even if they start small, man, and just do it's
That would
like
be great.
a collection of the current
Yeah,
bloodline, that 5-pack that they do, they could definitely do that. Those are things that I think that I'd be interested in
I
collecting and
would be.
stuff.
Mhm.
Long as it is not overpriced, you know what I mean? Like you talking about 5 figures and you just give me a good price for what I did, for sure.
Yeah.
But they'll go off the shelves. They'll be hard to get. The
Oh
you
yeah, I
know
think so.
pre-order.
I think you could do that right down the line with every legacy and just do a legacy pack. I'm surprised they haven't thought of it. Again, Mattel, if you're listening, Shadow's number.
Yeah,
We'll put it at the
yeah.
bottom of the screen right here.
Yeah, exactly, bro. Exactly, yo. So, we'll wait and see. But just overall, I think that the biggest challenge when it comes to being a legacy wrestler, second, third, or fourth generation wrestler, is that you have to have the desire and drive to be a wrestler. And for me, when I got into this business, it was because I love wrestling. I had a passion for it. Under the age of 10 years old, going to MSG,
Mhm.
seeing Worldwide Wrestling Federation Friday nights and on, and, MSG, my aunt taking me, and it's just like experiencing that, at an age of 8 and 9, you grow into it and then loving it, watching Mid South Wrestling in Texas, coming out here to California, meeting Mondo Guerrero, becoming a professional wrestler. It was in my blood. It was, I had it. Like Seth Rollins says and stuff. It's like, you have that in your blood and your desire to do it. You do it. Now, my son, he wrestled in high school and he was very good. And but I never pressured him, and I never
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
look,
Mhm.
I'm gonna take you down to the training center. Take you to Jesse Hernandez. You're gonna learn how to be a wrestler. You're gonna be a wrestler. It was just choose your path, do what you want to do. And wrestling was
Mhm.
not for him. So I think there should be the opportunity or the choice for a lot of kids to just say,
Yeah.
I don't want to be like Sting's kids and like Kevin's kids. They weren't wrestlers, or they didn't like this didn't become their career path.
Mhm.
So we have to look at that. But Dominic is definitely one that chose this career path, and Braun Breaker is definitely someone that chose this career path. So Ava, I'm not 100% sure she chose
Yeah.
this career path because
Mhm.
The Rock tried to get her in some Hollywood stuff or whatever, and for whatever reason that didn't work out. I think she kind of just jumped into it because that's what's going right now. So
Exactly. Mhm.
we'll see what happens in the future, man. But for all the fans out there, look, continue to tune in, continue to like, continue to subscribe. Shout out to Pixel Plastic and Inks. Shout out to everybody. And yeah, I definitely gotta say, it's like we're talking about shoot shots.
Mhm.
Shadow takes a shot. Mr. Stone will take a shot. We'll be doing that soon and stuff. So, it just, our shot on professional wrestling, and we've got stuff coming up and stuff. I think the Tech Master is going to join us in the future. The
Oh yeah.
Iceman's going to
Yeah.
join us in the future. And we will be doing a top wrestling podcast as well. To just kind of overall recap of all the world of professional wrestling coming up soon. So, yeah, continue to tune in and like and subscribe to Shadow Notes Network. This is the Shadow, and that's Mr. Storm.
Yes,
Hey,
sir.
another episode. As RBD says, tune in if you got the guts. Shadow said that. Shadow knew, Shadow knows.